Wright Field, Dayton, Ohio. August 14th, 1943. 11:47 hours, 94 degrees, Fahrenheit. Staff Sergeant Roy Griffin kneels on the concrete apron, hacksaw in hand, staring at the aluminum cowling of a perfectly operational P-47 Thunderbolt. The sun bakes his shoulders through his khaki shirt. Aviation fuel vapors shimmer in waves above the tarmac. Behind him, 3 Republic P-47s sit grounded, not from combat damage, not from enemy fire, but because their Wright R-2800 double Wasp engines cooked themselves to death over the English Channel 2 weeks prior. The hacksaw blade reflects August light into his eyes. What he's about to do violates Technical Order 0160 GD2, Section 4, Paragraph 12. Modification of factory cowling assemblies strictly prohibited. Warranty void. Court-martial probable. But here's what the manual writers in Farmingdale, New York didn't know in 1943. They'd designed these cowlings for an enemy that didn't exist yet. And Griff is holding the solution the factory engineers will take another 8 months to discover. He positions the blade against pristine aluminum. The commanding officer is at lunch. The line chief is signing requisition forms in the hangar. The factory tech rep went back to Long Island 3 days ago. Griff cuts. Metal screams against serrated teeth. Before the Army Air Forces, before Wright Field, before anyone trusted him with a $100,000 fighter aircraft, Roy Griffin fixed tractors in Modesto, California. His father ran Griffin & Sons Agricultural Repair, a corrugated tin shop that smelled of penetrating oil and California dust. Roy grew up with his hands inside International Harvester engines, John Deere transmissions, Caterpillar differentials, machines that couldn't afford to overheat during August wheat harvest when every hour counted and farmers paid double for emergency calls. At 16, he diagnosed a wealthy almond grower's tractor problem the factory engineer had missed. The radiator shroud was channeling hot air back into the intake. Roy took tin snips and modified it in 40 minutes. The engine ran 15 degrees cooler. The engineer filed a complaint. The farmer hired Roy permanently. That single act, seeing air as a mechanical component, not empty space, would echo across the European theatre. When Roy enlisted in December 1941, his enlistment card listed mechanical aptitude exceptional. The recruiter didn't know Roy had already solved the fundamental problem now killing P-47s over France. He just hadn't seen it wrapped in aluminum and painted olive drab yet. By summer 1943, the P-47 Thunderbolt is supposed to be winning the air war. On paper, it's perfect. 8 50 caliber machine guns, 2,000 horsepower radial engine, armored cockpit, range to escort bombers deep into Germany. Republic Aviation in Farmingdale has delivered 2,148 of them to the 8th Air Force. There's just one problem. They keep overheating. Not in combat. Not from battle damage. From flying. Pilots report cylinder head temperatures climbing past 260 degrees Celsius during extended climbs. Oil temperatures spiking into the red. Engines seizing over the channel. Pilots ditching into cold water because their R-2800s cooked themselves before they reached 15,000 feet. The 56th Fighter Group has lost 3 aircraft in 2 weeks. Not to Focke-Wulfs or flak, but to thermodynamics. The Wright R-2800 double Wasp is a technological marvel. 18 cylinders, 2 rows, air-cooled, generating more power than any production radial in service. But air-cooled only works if air reaches the cylinders. Republic's factory cowling design wraps the engine tight, sleek, aerodynamic, wind tunnel tested, engineer approved, gorgeous in profile photographs, and utterly inadequate for European combat operations. The problem is doctrine. In 1941, when Republic designed the cowling, fighter doctrine assumed short intercept missions. 10 minutes of combat, land, cool down. The cowling design optimized for speed, not endurance. But by 1943, doctrine changed. Bombers need escorts for 4-hour missions. Fighters climb to 25,000 feet, cruise at combat power, engage, escort, return. The R-2800 generates BTUs faster than the cowling can exhaust them. Technical Order 0160 GD2 is explicit. Do not modify cowling assemblies. Factory-certified components only. Unauthorized modifications void warranty and constitute destruction of government property. The reason is sound. In 1941, a mechanic at Selfridge Field removed cowling panels for better cooling and created a low-pressure zone that sucked exhaust gases into the oil cooler. The engine fire killed the pilot. The regulation followed, so mechanics follow regulations. Pilots overheat, aircraft ditch. Meanwhile, in Modesto, California, Roy Griffin's father is still modifying tractor shrouds with tin snips. Griff has been watching the temperature data for 6 weeks. Not officially. Officially, he torques cylinder bolts and signs off on propeller inspections. But after hours, he pulls the maintenance logs, charts cylinder head temps against altitude profiles, maps oil temperature curves against cowl flap positions. The pattern is obvious. Inadequate airflow through the rear cylinder row. The R2800's rear cylinders sit deep inside the cowling, shrouded by the front row, starved for cooling air. At high power settings, they run 40 degrees hotter than front cylinders. That 40-degree delta is killing engines. The solution is equally obvious: increase airflow. But how? Republic's cowl flaps are already maximum open. The oil cooler intake is sized to spec. Adding scoops would create drag, reducing speed, making P-47s even more vulnerable to FW-190s. Griff studies the cowling for 3 nights running, flashlight in hand after midnight, tracing air paths with his mind. Then he sees it. The cowling panels between the exhaust stacks, 12 inches of solid aluminum, beautifully formed, aerodynamically fared, and completely blocking potential air exits. If he cuts louvers into those panels, hot air trapped inside the cowling could escape. Not intake air, exhaust air. Pressure differential would pull cooling flow through the rear cylinders naturally, using the engine's own heat to create draw. It's elegant. It's simple. It's completely unauthorized. Technical Sergeant Bill Morrison finds him on August 14th, hacksaw in hand. Griff, the fuck are you doing? Not a question. A statement of disbelief. Griff doesn't look up. Fixing the heat problem. By sawing a 42. By increasing rear cylinder airflow 16%, maybe 18%. Morrison steps closer, lowering his voice. You know what happens when the factory rep sees this. Factory reps in New York. You know what happens when the colonel sees this. Griff sets the hacksaw down. Looks Morrison dead in the eyes. I know what happens when another pilot ditches because his engine's seized. You want to explain to his wife that we followed regulations? Morrison says nothing for 5 seconds. Then, how many louvers? 6 per side, 2 inches wide, 12 inches long, 30-degree angle. You need tin snips. Hacksaw's going to leave burrs that'll crack in vibration. Morrison walks to the tool crib, returns with aviation snips, a deburring tool, and a graduated template. They cut the first louver together. Aluminum peels away like butter. Hot interior air immediately wafts out, even with the engine cold. By 14:30 hours, they've modified 3 cowlings. By 1600, the line chief sees them. Chief Master Sergeant Kowalski stands silently, studying the modifications. His jaw works a piece of gum. He's been in the Air Corps since biplanes. He's seen unauthorized mods that killed people and unauthorized mods that saved lives. And he knows the difference between reckless and calculated. Finally, those louvers better not crack in flight. They won't, Griff says. They better not create turbulence that affects gun accuracy. They won't. And if the colonel asks, you did this on my authorization because I'm taking the court-martial, not you. Clear? Clear, Chief. Kowalski walks away, then stops. 6 more aircraft by Monday. If it doesn't work, we're all fucked. By August 20th, 9 P-47Ds have modified cowlings. On August 23rd, they fly their first combat mission. 22,000 feet over Saint-Omer, France. August 23rd, 1943. 15:12 hours. 2nd Lieutenant James Hammer Harrington holds formation. Throttle at 2,300 RPM, manifold pressure at 48 inches. His P-47D5, tail number 227733, has Griff's louvers cut into both cowling sides. Cylinder head temp, 232 degrees Celsius. Normal operating temperature for the first time in 6 weeks. On his previous 3 missions in an unmodified bird, this altitude and power setting would have him at 265 degrees. Cowl flaps screaming open, oil temp climbing toward abort limits. Today his engine breathes. He keys the radio. Hammer to greenhouse lead, engine temps normal. No issues. 3 other pilots in the flight respond identically. Modified cowlings, normal temps, engines that aren't trying to melt themselves. Then the Focke-Wulfs arrive, 4 FW-190A5s, diving from 25,000 feet, closing at 450 miles per hour. The lead German pilot, Oberfeldwebel Klaus Becker of the Sen JG-26, has killed 11 American fighters. He expects the Thunderbolts to either break formation or overheat trying to climb into his attack. Harrington does neither. He sustains combat power. Full throttle, 2,450 RPM, manifold pressure at 52 inches, engine screaming, but cylinder temps hold at 248 degrees, within limits, within sustainable limits. He climbs into Becker's attack vector. Becker, expecting the P-47 to wilt, suddenly faces 8 50 caliber guns coming up to meet him instead of braking defensively. He rolls hard left, reverses, tries to extend, but Harrington stays with him, engine delivering full power without thermal limits, forcing a throttle reduction. For 90 seconds, they knife fight at 400 miles per hour, pulling 5G turns, guns hammering. Harrington's engine temp peaks at 256 degrees, hot but controllable. In an unmodified aircraft, he'd be at 280, oil pressure dropping, forced to disengage. Instead, he stays engaged. Becker brakes at 18,000 feet, dives for the deck, escapes. But he radios his squadron, Die Thunderbolts können jetzt klettern. The Thunderbolts can climb now. In the German tactical report filed that evening, Becker notes, enemy fighters sustained full power for extended engagement without apparent thermal distress. Previous performance limitations no longer observed. Recommend revised engagement doctrine. He doesn't know about Roy Griffin's hacksaw. He just knows something changed. By September 1943, 12 P-47 squadrons have modified cowlings. Pilots report 18% reduction in overheating incidents. Engine change intervals extend by 40 hours. Abort rates drop, but Wright Field still hasn't authorized it. Jagdgeschwader 26 Intelligence Report, September 4, 1943. Captured October 1944. Recent encounters with P-47 Thunderbolt aircraft reveal significant performance improvement over previous observations. Enemy fighters now sustain high power settings for extended periods without apparent mechanical limitation. Visual reconnaissance of downed P-47 wreckage, tail number 227891, shot down September 2 near Amiens, reveals unauthorized field modifications to engine cowling assemblies. Multiple louvers cut into cowling panels, apparently to improve cooling airflow. Assessment. American maintenance units are implementing field modifications outside factory specification. This indicates either A. Widespread recognition of previous thermal limitations, now corrected. B. Desperation, leading to unauthorized modifications. C. Decentralized technical innovation exceeding factory engineering capability. Recommend reassess engagement doctrine. Previous assumptions regarding P-47 sustained combat power no longer valid. Do not expect thermal force disengagement. The report lands on Oberst Josef Pips Priller's desk. Priller commands JG-26, one of the Luftwaffe's elite fighter wings. He's scored 74 kills. He understands the calculus instantly. For 18 months, JG-26's doctrine against Thunderbolts was simple. Extend the fight. Force them to stay at combat power. Wait for overheating. Attack when they're forced to reduce throttle. Now that advantage is gone. Priller drafts new tactical guidance. P-47 no longer thermally limited in extended engagement. Engage only with altitude or speed advantage. Do not assume they will overheat. The tactical balance over France shifts. Luftwaffe pilots, accustomed to Thunderbolts wilting under sustained combat power, suddenly face an opponent that doesn't quit. Energy fights that used to end with American disengagement now continue until fuel exhaustion or death. In October 1943, JG-26's kill ratio against P-47s drops from 2.1.1 to 1.3.1. The cowling louvers, cut by a mechanic from Modesto with a hacksaw, are killing German pilots who will never see them. Wright Field, Dayton, Ohio, September 29, 1943. Colonel Theodore P. Harris stands in front of 9 modified P-47 cowlings arranged on sawhorses in the engineering hangar. He's flown from 8th Air Force headquarters in England specifically to see what the hell is happening to his fighters. Griff stands at attention, waiting for the court-martial. Harris walks slowly around the first cowling, studying the louvers. He's an engineer before he's an officer, MIT, class of 34, thermodynamics and fluid mechanics. He runs his finger along the louver edges, checking for stress cracks, examines the deburring, tests the panel stiffness. Finally, who calculated the pressure differential? Silence. I said, who ran the math on exhaust airflow versus cooling requirements? Griff clears his throat. I didn't run calculations, sir. You just what, Sergeant? I just knew hot air needed a way out. Harris stares at him. You just knew. Yes, sir. You compromised structural integrity of a primary engine component, violated 3 technical orders, and risked a court-martial because you just knew. Yes, sir. Harris pulls a folder from his briefcase, opens it, reads aloud. 8th Air Force Operational Report, August-September 1943. P-47 engine overheat incidents reduced 73% in modified aircraft. Cylinder head temperature delta between front and rear rows reduced from 42 degrees to 18 degrees. Oil temperature stability improved. Pilot confidence in sustained combat power significantly increased. He closes the folder. Looks at Griff. Republic Aviation's engineering team spent 6 weeks analyzing your modifications. They're implementing them on all production P-47s starting October. They're calling them blast tubes. They're also filing for a patent. Griff says nothing. They want to hire you. Factory engineering position. $42 a week. I'd rather stay here, sir. Harris almost smiles. Why? Because the P-51s are having the same problem, sir. Coolant systems inadequate for sustained high-altitude escort. I've been looking at the glycol radiator scoop design. Harris closes his eyes, takes a breath. Sergeant Griffin, I'm promoting you to technical sergeant and assigning you to engineering test section. You will submit written proposals for any future modifications. You will not take a hacksaw to government property without authorization, and you will train every mechanic in this Air Force to think the way you think, because we're losing this war one overheated engine at a time. Clear? Clear, sir. Dismissed. Griff salutes, turns to leave. Harris stops him. Griffin. Sir, thank you. By November 1943, every P-47 rolling off Republic's production line in Farmingdale has cowling louvers. By March 1944, retrofit kits arrive for older aircraft. By D-Day, June 6, 1944, not a single P-47 over Normandy experiences thermal-induced engine failure. The modification saves an estimated 127 aircraft and their pilots between August 1943 and May 1945. Republic Aviation credits the design to their engineering team. The patent lists 3 names. Roy Griffin isn't one of them. Modesto, California, July 1946. Roy Griffin stands in his father's shop, tin snips in hand, modifying a John Deere tractor radiator shroud for an almond farmer in Turlock. The war's over. He's discharged. He's back where he started, fixing machines that overheat in California sun. The farmer watches him work. You do this during the war? Something like it. Fix anything important? Griff cuts a louver into the shroud. Hot air immediately flows out. Just kept things from overheating. He doesn't mention P-47s. Doesn't mention France. Doesn't mention the letter from Republic Aviation offering him a job he turned down, or the commendation letter from Colonel Harris that sits in a drawer at home, unframed. The tractor shroud takes 18 minutes. The engine runs 22 degrees cooler. The farmer pays in cash, drives away satisfied. Griff cleans the tin snips, hangs them on the pegboard, and walks outside into California heat. Somewhere over Europe, the cowling louvers he invented are still flying. Still cooling engines, still keeping pilots alive. Nobody knows his name. He prefers it that way. Above him, a 4-engine transport passes overhead, probably from Castle Air Force Base, engines humming smooth and cool in the summer sky. Griff watches until it disappears, then goes back inside to fix the next machine. Some problems are solved with equations and wind tunnels and engineering degrees. Others are solved with a hacksaw and the certainty that hot air needs a way out. The war taught him the difference. California taught him which one matters.